Morning, everyone, and welcome to Safari Live on this sunrise safari. My name is Byron, and on camera with me this morning is Liam. We've got Ali and Senzo on the other vehicle, and then of course Tristan and Fergs, but they will be walking this morning. They're going to brave the bush and go out on a bushwalk, which is exciting. Now it is still a little dark. It's still overcast. We've had overcast weather for quite a few days. So hopefully this lifts a little bit later. It's a bit chilly, but lovely morning. I don't mind these cool mornings, to be honest. Now don't forget, we are live, so send us your questions and your comments. Hashtag Safari Live via Twitter is how you do that. Otherwise, you can also comment on the comments box on YouTube, and hopefully we'll get through as many of your questions as possible. I'm not sure what I'm going to be looking for this morning yet. Any sign of animals? Yesterday afternoon, actually, I didn't have much luck finding any activity. It was a bit quiet yesterday, but it was windy and it was cold, and I think a lot of the animals weren't as active. But maybe this morning our luck changes a bit. We'll see what we can find. Sierra, you'd like to see a baby elephant with a branch on its head. Well, Sierra, I'll try my best for a baby elephant. I don't know about a branch on the head. Oh, should we go left or right here? What do you think? Left or right? Right, well, it sounds like Ali is off to a good start already. She's got a rather tall animal she wants to show you and say good morning to.
Good morning indeed to everyone. It seems like it's not quite the time of the day to rise and shine for this giraffe. And if you ever wondered how they lay down or how they sat down, well, here it is. This is pretty much how they do it. And I'm surprised at this girl and the fact that she's still sleeping. I have never seen one of them sleeping on quarantine, or at least relaxing. So this is quite a unique sighting for me as well. It's my first time to see them here. Now you can see her cheeks are full. She was busy having her breakfast. My name is Ali, and on camera with me today is Senzo. We're very happy to take you around just to see all these crazy things that the bush has in store for us today. Now, if you've got any comments or any questions, please feel free to send them in through using the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or use the YouTube chat. Especially if you've got any puzzling questions as to why the giraffe is sitting down. This is some of my favorite things to witness. Now, this is not the first time that I've seen a giraffe do this. They do that quite commonly, but it's the first time I've seen it in Djuma. Dr. Rob, it's not quite common for them to do this, and I think out of all the creatures out in the bush, the giraffes are perhaps the ones that are considered to sleep the less. It's believed that in a day they probably go from about 20 minutes to maybe 4 hours or so. So they don't really sleep as much as some of the other creatures around. You can see this one though is not fully sleeping. It's just sitting down ruminating, much like buffalo and impala do. So I think perhaps she also needed a bit of a break, and that's the reason why she's decided to lie down. But how amazing is this? This looks very cool. It is definitely one of my favorite things to see such a big animal sitting down like that. And if I were to go and sit or stand really next to it, she would still be a lot bigger than me. Alright guys, seems like we are running into some tech issues. If the Franklin will allow me to talk. Thank you, mister. So, and the giraffe is up and going. So we need to restart some of our very complicated technical things whose name I cannot remember. So we will be back with you shortly, but we'll stick with the giraffe and see where it goes. Hopefully all of our tech issues have been resolved. And as you can see, the giraffe is still hanging around with us, which is wonderful. I haven't seen giraffe in quite a while, so I'm always happy to see creatures that I haven't spent time with. And there's just something very particular about giraffe that seems to attract audiences worldwide. I don't know if because they are much bigger than any one of us, if their necks are so tall, or if there's just something about what seems to be a very calm and relaxed way of being. Now, she is, I think, being a little bit shy, and she's busy eating. So she has gone in the middle of an acacia thicket, and it seems that that's what she's feeding upon. But there's another giraffe not too far from here, but also not in the greatest of spots. But it's just on an other side. So, what do you think, Senzo? Will you be able to get it from there? We can just barely see oh, there we go. Not too bad. First Lady, giraffes are considered ruminants, and I don't know if you managed to get a glimpse of her when she was lying down, that she had her cheek pouches very full, and she was eating and chewing in that typical ruminating fashion. So ruminating means that they have got a very similar stomach or digestive system to the buffaloes and the cows, which is considered that for stomach digestion. Even giraffes with their very long necks, if you look closely enough, you'll see when they regurgitate their food and it goes all the way back up, and then they start chewing it again, and then it goes all the way back down, which pretty much means that giraffes have got a very effective digestive system. And ironically, for such a big animal, their droppings are probably some of the smallest ones that we get out here. It's well, not the size of an impala one, but it's maybe about twice the size of a coffee bean, if I can. Yeah, I think that would be appropriate. So they are very efficient. They manage to get virtually every single nutrient and moisture, or pretty much almost all of it, from what they eat. And this is why they're able to produce such small droppings. So it helps with their digestive system. And like I've said before, normally what goes in tends to take quite a while to come out. So perhaps what we were seeing at chewing, or regurgitating and chewing again, it has actually been in her system for a few days now. Now, looking at the horns of this particular one that we're seeing now, it seems like this is a male. And you see what a difference from the horns of the one before. These ones are very thick, very parallel to one another, and very bold on top. That is the main trick that we've got to identify giraffes. And the reason for it is because the males, obviously, they fight one another and they use their horns. Those are the weapons that they use when they neck spar, or where they try to establish their dominance or their mating rights against another male over a certain female. Now, I wonder if this is perhaps the two that Byron had yesterday, because I know he mentioned at one point that he had 2 giraffes on his tribe. So it could be that it's the same two. Giraffes do tend to form loose social groupings, and they'll come together and they'll spend some time together, but there's never a set social structure for them. And in the case of a male following a female around, it could be that she might be coming into estrus. There are no little ones around that I can see, so that could be a possibility. It could be that love is in the air. After all, it's still February, which is the month of love, so there is that possibility. Otherwise, it could just be that they sort of bumped into each other. I think that's one of my favorite things about giraffes, just how random they are. They come, they go, they spend some time together, and they're like, okay, cool, I'm done, and then they head off. Now, they're both in very tricky spots, so I'm going to try and move, see if maybe we can get another view of the female, because I think she's just around the bushes here. The male has also gone into a bit of a tricky spot. Alrighty. Say when, Senzo? Sorry, Faith, can you please repeat the question for me? There we go. Mac, they last in their lifetime, as far as I know, the giraffe's teeth. They're not like the elephant ones, where they have so many sets that are replaced all throughout their life. I would imagine that they've got at least milk teeth that get replaced, and then from there onwards. But I'm not too sure, actually, how many teeth replacements they have got. I wouldn't imagine too many if they follow true herbivore or ruminant fashion. That is actually a very interesting question, and I don't know if I will be able to find anything about it on my book. As funny enough, I find that we are always curious about certain things, and teeth arrangement is definitely one of them. But books never mention that. You have to go and look for it in some other places. The internet is a wonderful place to start looking for things like that. So perhaps if anyone wants to help us out and use the hashtag SafariLive and let us know how many sets of teeth does a giraffe get in a lifetime, well, that would be quite interesting to know, as I've got no idea. I would imagine it's at least 2, but I don't know if after that they have another one that gets replaced. I would imagine it's not as set as the ones for elephants, where they are constantly changing them throughout their life and they have a set number that they've got throughout their lives, or just 5, and then after that the last set doesn't come, and then they start roughly losing condition because they're not able to break down what they have to eat. Hi, Giraffe. Look at you. Are you enjoying the leaves? Nice, yummy leaves. Now you can see the horns. See how different they are from the ones of the male that we were watching. Very thin, almost pointy towards the top, and of course a lot of hair. And it's because the females, well, they don't use their horns to fight. If anything, they might use them to try and defend themselves if they're being attacked by perhaps lions. But they've also got a very powerful kick. So I think their best bet, especially for the females, is just to either be able to stand and stomp on top of their potential predator, may it be a hyena or a lion or even a leopard. But I think in the case of hyenas and leopards, it's probably when they're after their young, then what they would go after them. And then with lions, they're very well known for kicking them. And to be honest, I would never want to be kicked by a giraffe. I reckon you would be killed in an instant. I mean, it is as big or as heavy as a truck, so there's got to be some absolute strength in there. Right. I think our friendly girl is not wanting to be disturbed, and she's decided that the best restaurant is the one that is amongst the leaves. So I think we're going to leave her. And okay, bye-bye, Giraffe. Now, it seems like Byron has also found a mammal in a tree, so let's go and find out what it is.
Now, I remember finding this Genet here last year, and I think it's the same Genet that everybody comes and checks. Beautiful little Genet hiding in the tree. Look at that beautiful pattern. I'm keeping my voice very low because it is a little skittish, and usually it moves up into the tree, a little high up. You might see that long tail shortly. They are such awesome little animals. Come on, look at us again. You see that beautiful face? I'm so glad you got to see as you came across to us. Tammy, is this your first view of a little Genet? You see it's moved up, so it's got a wonderful little spot in here, I think. It's probably sleeping just up in there. Can you see anything there, Viam? I don't think we'll see face, but such a lovely view of the Genet. And I haven't seen it in this hole for a while. But yeah, I think we found it there, I don't know, middle of last year sometime. And it's used the same hole. So it's amazing how long this Genet has stayed in this tree for. I think Tristan and Ali call it Genet Jackson. Oh, there we go. The tail is... What's that Genet doing? Just hiding in there. So this is a large spotted Genet with that black tip of the tail. The small spotted Genet has got a white tip. It would be wonderful if it decided to show its face again. Ah, there we go. Oh, well spotted for you. Pardon? Ah, it does like you. There we go. Watch, I'm going to just make a sound. See, they get a little curious. Isn't that beautiful? Look, there it is. Oh my word, this is fantastic. I don't want to shine directly on it, just off to the side. But look at that. That is wonderful, Tammy. For your first Genet sighting, it doesn't get much better than this, because they're usually very shy little animals, and they do move quite quickly. And this one is being wonderful this morning. Look at those magnificent eyes. And a lot of you saying how adorable this is. And it is. It's very, very cute. Look at that. Wow, look at that. See, just climbing higher up into the tree. Now you see the spots. There we go. Beautiful pattern on the skin. Now, Ms. Jim, you asked if genets are strictly nocturnal. They generally are. Again, I'm always cautious with using that word strictly nocturnal, because at times you do see these little creatures moving around during the day or early morning or late afternoon. So I wouldn't say strictly nocturnal, but they are known to be mainly nocturnal. They mainly move around at night, foraging for food and that, and then they'll come back and sleep in trees like this, hollowed out trees. But it's wonderful to see that Genet climb all the way up. But so cute to see that little face watching us. That was really special. Oh, well, that is a wonderful start. I'm sure some people are curious as to what we've got, but they're not going to be able to see the Genet, unfortunately. That was a nice surprise. I can't believe that Genet is still using the same tree hollow. Well, but I suppose their lifespan is a few years, so it's not unusual that they would use the same one. That was wonderful. Great start. I'm very happy about that. Let's go now to Tristan, who has just started his bushwalk.
Indeed we have, Byron. We have started our walk, and we are looking at something else that has already been walking last night. Now, as Byron mentioned, my name is Tristan, and on camera today I have got a Fergus for our great trek through the wilderness. Oh, we've got different hand signs today, Fergus. Very interesting. We rock on because you're walking. Excellent. So no send off like a captain or a pilot. Now, remember, we are live, we are interactive, so I do want to hear from all of you. If you've got any questions about our walk, remember hashtag Safari Live or YouTube chat if you want to get hold of us. So the hashtag is on Twitter, by the way. Now, I was saying we have very cool tracks here. This is one of the best things about being out on walks in the summer months. So what we've got is we've got these kind of lines that are in the sand here. You can see these kind of feet that are almost coming along. And so what this is for a certain type of frog. This particular track that we're seeing here is for a bushveld rain frog. They tend to walk rather than hop. So a normal frog, you would have the 2 feet kind of next to each other with 2 little front feet, and then you'd see a hop, and there would be the 2 feet and then 2 front feet. Whereas this is a walking motion, and so the foot is placed there, and then you can see a slight little drag, and then the next foot, slight little drag, foot, and so basically it's just pulling itself along in the sand. It's a very different gait to what we see from a number of the other frogs, which is very, very cool. So So I love watching the tracks at this time of the year. So many different insects we have after rain like this. A lot of the frogs are out and about, and it makes life really interesting in terms of looking at tracks. I always enjoy kind of frog tracking particularly because there's these kind of little nuances that you've got to look for to try and determine what kinds of frogs they are, and you can actually determine quite a few of them. These guys, like I say, and then you've got a number of your jumping frogs that you can see. Then you've got things like platanas, which are a type of frog that are far more amphibious, if we want to call it that. No, I suppose that's not the right word, but far more aquatic than some of the other frogs, and they've got little webbing on their toes, so you can see those. So very, very cool thing to have a look for and to see. So what I think we're going to do this morning is, because we're out and about, and Herbie, who's back and is feeling much better. For those of you that didn't know, Herbie was a little under the weather for a few days, but he's apparently feeling fit as a fiddle and is ready to go. And so what we're going to try and do is we're going to go and try and see if we can pick up any signs of Tundi outside of the road networks that we've been using. So we're going to go try and check around on the eastern blocks and go and see if there's any sort of tracks, just to give us an idea if maybe she's hanging around in one of the drainage lines or what's going on for her. So that's kind of the plan for the morning. We'll see how it goes. It's obviously going to take us a while to get to that side of the world, so we'll have to walk quite hard to get there, but it'll be nice. It's perfect walking conditions. That wind is completely gone now, and we've got a situation where we've got nice overcast grey clouds, and we've got a few, a bit of a cooler weather, so it's perfect walking conditions. Now, sorry, Ferg, I'm changing direction here quickly, because the other day, some of you might have remembered, we had an incredibly big snake track that was coming in this direction, and actually we're right at the termite mound, and I want to show you down into the mound how deep it is. I was saying that the snake might have gone inside here. This is the big hole over here, and you can see it goes quite far in. It's very difficult actually to see inside there because it's so dark. I'll try to give you some light, Fergus. That might help you a little bit. So there we go. It goes a long, long way down into that hole, and I don't see any sign of a snake there, which is quite nice because I wouldn't really want to see a massive head staring back at me. The thing is, though, is that there is a lot of spider web at this hole. So either these spiders built this after the snake went in, or the snake actually didn't even go in at this particular site. So it's interesting. You can sometimes use these kind of things. If we had followed the tracks to this hole and found the webs like this, we would have known immediately that this wouldn't have been where the snake went. The thing is, now it's been a few days since that snake was in this area, so let me get my torch off, which is my phone actually, and that snake, is probably moved on since then. We haven't found any more sort of tracks, and had we followed it at the time, we would have been able to work out if it had gone in there, but that was when we had a few little technical glitches, and so it was just me at the time, so I had to kind of carry on and see what else there was. Now, we're going to head east in that direction. While we head in that direction, it sends you back across to Byron, who I believe is at a body of water.
I am. I'm down at Twin Dams at the moment and found a group of white-faced whistling ducks. Haven't seen them for quite a while. I'm still so happy about that little Genet that we saw. Now, a lot of people refer to the Genet as a Genet cat, but it's not a cat. It's not part of the cat family. It's in a different family, Viveridae. So, but it does look very cat-like. However, it's not part of the feline family, not part of the cat family. It's such a peaceful morning, and Tristan was mentioning it's nice and cool. It's a perfect morning for a walk. It's also a wonderful morning for a drive. And I've seen some lovely little creatures already. As I said, these wonderful white-faced whistling ducks. Now, they do have a beautiful whistle. Let me try play it for you quickly, for those of you who haven't heard the call of the white-faced whistling ducks. Joe, you say they are quite interesting looking. They are. They've got that beautiful kind of a rufous, reddish brown coloration on the neck, those black bellies, blackish head to the back, and then that obviously very clear white face. Now let me play the call for you quickly. You hear that? Now that is obviously their little whistle that they give. Hence the name, the white-faced whistling duck. I'm just having a look around. I see some vehicles behind me, and I'm just always curious. That's Little Gowrie, but judging by the dust cloud that is being left, I assume that something has been spotted on Little Gowrie. So maybe we'll get an update a little bit later. Trish, yeah, these ducks, the call is that whistling sound. It's not a quack really, as we assume all ducks make that sound. But no, these ducks have that wonderful whistling sound. Because I wonder where that other vehicle raced to. However, unfortunately, it is on Little Gowrie, so we can't get there, but we can hang around. Maybe they've found something that is moving in this direction. I haven't heard anything on the radio yet, but I think they operate on a different channel down there. Alright, so I'm going to have a look around here and then possibly head down towards Chitwa and have a look around there for any leopard activity. But in the meantime, let's go back to Ali and find out how our morning's going so far.
Well, so far so good. Cannot really complain. It almost seems that today we will have some hope of actually seeing the sun. So that puts my spirits in a high condition. Now I'm on the western side of Djuma, just trying to see if there are any tracks here for anything that might be interesting, but so far no luck. Just a lot of hyena tracks, a lot of hyenas moving up and down. And I wonder what they're up to at night. It's funny because we struggle to find leopard and sometimes lion tracks on the property, but hyenas are always up to something. They're always moving, they're always going places, and they always remind me of the saying, fish to fry and kites to fly, because they're always up to something. And it's very wonderful of them, but at some time they're also so very hard to track because they do not stand still, almost like not the lions, the wild dogs. Now I just want to carry on focusing on the ground every now and again when there are little disturbances in the sand, as Herbie likes to call them, and just to make sure that we don't miss anything. But I think we're going to try one of the side roads, see if there's anything there. I have a feeling today that there might be something interesting in store for us. So fingers crossed we'll be able to get something. Ooh. It is, as Tristan was saying, it is a little bit on the chilly side. It's almost like it's been raining for days, but we've had none of the water, and then you get that crispy feeling in the air. So, ooh. I think I will need more coffee at some point during the morning just to be able to stay warm. Now I'm hoping that there will be that big warthog around this corner that we saw the other day. That would be wonderful as well to see. Now what else is in here? Pretty little things. Come on, creatures of the wild. I think today everyone's taking also a little bit of time in waking up, but I am confident that if the wind doesn't pick up, we'll be able to see a little bit more live than what we did yesterday morning. Yesterday morning the wind was really blowing at some point. Almost, well, it wasn't howling, but it was, I don't know, a gust of wind. It was getting in the way of all the creatures wanting to come out and just started feeding. So I think maybe if we stay around this road that is a little bit thicker, we might get lucky with some other things. Robin, yes, the sightings of the Big Five are well, in this particular reserve at least, they are entered into the Panthera database. Now, I'm not 100% sure if Panthera still requests for elephant and buffalo sightings, just to get a general map of distribution of the animals within the Sabi Sand. But leopards and lions, definitely. Those ones get recorded, and it's probably one of the nightmares of girls in FC, as wherever we find a sighting, they also have to record it, not only for blogging purposes, just to know what's been going on, but also for Panthera, because they just ask, and it costs nothing, and everyone's very motivated to help, especially rangers whenever they can. So when you find an animal, or you find a specific one, you drop a pin into the map that they provide, and then that way they will know where animals go, what they've been going up to, how big their territory is, because there are a lot of variables that get inputted into the system, and then obviously if you process the information, then you get all of the results as to which leopard has got the biggest territory, where do they hang out, and so on. And obviously they request ID kits, so you've got to know, okay, this is this particular female because it has this spot pattern, and so on. So yes, they are entered just to help with general conservation and knowledge in the area. And like I said, it's one of those things that I think it can be fun to do. Probably the girls in FC are like, no. I used to do it when I was in Lion Sands. I used to be the one that had to enter all the sightings and so on. And it was interesting because then obviously they'll share the information at the girls in FC are definitely not happy about Panthera. But they still do it because we all understand the conservation purposes. So I think when you're out here and you're living this type of life, then you always try and at least help with something. Just provide information, or say where they've been, or say where they've gone, just because, well, it's for free. It costs you nothing, and it can make quite a difference in the studies of someone that's wanting to know what's been happening and what's been going on. So yeah, they do get reported into different databases, and then the information gets processed from there. We don't do the processing because that's a little bit more complicated statistical processing, which can be a bit of a nightmare. And I remember doing it for my master's, and I was like, whoa, so many numbers, so many things. Alright, seems like Tristan is onto the dung and the track, so let's find out what dung he's looking at.
Well, we're not actually looking at the dung. What we're looking at is fur and tracks. So if you have a look here, there we go. Nice soft fur, and you can see it's very white towards the sort of edge, and then it's got, well, actually, sorry, on the edge it's got a bit of camouflage on it, whereas in the middle it's kind of a whitish color. Now, this is fur from a scrub hare, and so this poor scrub hare, I think, met a sticky end here last night. There's not that much fur around, but if you have a look over here, you can see that there's quite deep gouges in the actual soil, and there again, the scrub hare looks like it was running and it was being chased by a white-tailed mongoose. So here's the white-tailed mongoose over here. You can see the little toes that have dug in, and then little track coming back. So the white-tailed mongoose was chasing the scrub hare, and I think it managed to grab it. Now, Herbie has just marked out an area for me over here. Herbie, can you see more tracks? Yes, there we go. There's more tracks for this white-tailed mongoose coming over and moving in. There we go. So that's very, very cool. So I think a white-tailed mongoose must have grabbed this scrub hare and killed it here, or at least got a mouthful of it, and unfortunately pulled out some of its fur. I don't see the rest of a sign of a drag mark or a carcass anywhere here, so it looks more like maybe it tried to attack the scrub hare, and maybe the scrub hare got away. But really cool to see the evidence of fur, and that's how we first looked at it, is we saw the fur on the ground, and then we kind of led us towards where these tracks were, and then you can kind of piece together what goes on. So obviously it helps having somebody like Herbie around who can show us and look at things a little bit more in depth, but a very, very cool scene. So basically all happened over here. This is old buffalo dung, so it's got nothing to do with what was going on, but it was just kind of happening in this area, and you could see, like I say, a bit of fur, the tracks, and as well as the scrub hare tracks, which is very cool. So, Kristen, you say a bush crime scene. It is a bush crime scene. It's a very cool crime scene to see. It's not something that we get to see that often, and this is the best thing about going on a walk, is that you don't always kind of pick these things up from a vehicle. If you were driving along, you'd easily miss those tracks. I mean, they're tiny. They're only about that big, and you've got, a tiny little bit of fur, and so you don't see that when you're driving. You have a situation where you kind of, you're busy looking out for things around, and so being on foot, you get to see these tiny little things. And, as much as it's nice to see the big animals and to see leopards and lions and those kind of things, I think some of the most intriguing sort of things and tracks and signs that we see are made by the smaller creatures. And I love being looking at the tracks and figuring out what took place over the course of an evening and which little animals were out and about and what were they actually up to. So I really enjoy kind of coming out here and being on foot. And I was just saying to Herbie and Ferg now, it's so nice to actually be stretching the legs again. After a few days of being on a car, you often get to a situation where you kind of feel a little, I don't know, it's not that you feel claustrophobic, but it's a different feeling, and especially if it's been a quiet few days. So it's nice just to be on foot and feel kind of as though you don't have anything around you. You open, there's that sense where you concentrate a lot more because you need to listen, you need to look out for things, you need to make sure that you are paying attention to what's going on around you, because at any stage, anything can come out, and you need to be able to deal with whatever is around, as well as focusing on smaller things. So you've got to keep your eyes peeled on the edges of the grasses, on the tops of the grasses, looking for all kinds of little creatures and insects and those kind of things. So it's thing to do, and bushwalks are one of my favorite things. I love being out here, and it's a great way to kind of spend some time out in the bush. Right, I'm going to carry on. We're going to try and head east. We're going to try and kind of use Central to get closer and get off the roads and start checking harder to reach places. And while with that, let's send you back across to Byron.
Oh, well, good luck, Tristan. I think we just lost Tristan there as he was finishing up. But he said he's going to be heading off-road and checking some of the thicker areas. So I hope he has some luck this morning on walk. We haven't had any changes, really, or any sign of predators. Well, actually, no. We've seen, again, and I find this fascinating, we've seen hyena tracks on just about every single road we've been on, but we always struggle to find the hyena. We did hear hyena, however. She'll try to say that 5 times fast. Hear hyena, however, but they were south of our boundaries, so we were unable to go and try and find them. But there were some hyena calling, that whooping sound of the hyena. What do you think? Was that okay? Hyena call, not very good. So we've just been ambling along slowly. Sorry, Faith, could you please repeat that Ravi's question? Well, what is my favorite? Ravi, my favorite apex predator. I think in terms of predators, I don't know. This is, I've never really given it too much thought. I'd have to say a leopard. Now that I think about it. And I'll tell you why. I mean, I know a lot of people love leopards. Lions are also amazing. However, the leopards, for me, are a little better. They just top the lions slightly. And especially big male leopards. They are just so powerful. I think power to weight ratio of a leopard is just, it's insane how strong those animals are. They're also very stealthy. They're intelligent predators. And of course they're beautiful, but it's more the leopard behavior that I find fascinating. And yeah, I'd have to say leopard. I think leopard would be my apex predator. VM, do you have one? What's your favorite apex predator? Lion. Okay. VM says lion. Probably one of the big males, have you? And the females are cool. Okay. So VM likes lion. I like leopard. Well, it's, yeah, like VM says, leopard isn't, well, he doesn't think it's an apex predator. However, they fill a different role, a different niche, and I think it is considered to be a top predator. Yes, a lion is bigger and probably a bit stronger because it is so much larger than a male leopard. But I've seen footage of a male leopard standing its ground to a number of lions trying to attack it, and this leopard managing to turn and swipe and hit lions as they came for him. And I actually think he got out of that situation, which is amazing. I'm trying to have a look along here. The sand's nice and soft in this area. So it's nice soft soil to have a look for any tracks, any fresh tracks. Now, I understand a lot of you are still as excited about that Genet sighting as I was, or as I am. Hold on a second. I need to get a book out here quickly. That's a problem sometimes with books. It's always, I mean, I always prefer carrying books around, but they do get damaged a bit in your bag. I probably need one of those boxes. I think James and Tristan, they've all got big boxes with their books. Let me just find a Genet quickly. So, Chelsea, you asked how common are Genets. Well, you know what, they're a lot more common than we think. However, they are mainly nocturnal. And we don't see them that often. But if you look around on the roads, and maybe Tristan will find some tracks a little bit later, but the other day on Bushwalk when we were out, we saw a number of Genet tracks. So they are out at night. They are around foraging for food. I just want to see quickly. Now, there are a number of different Genet species in Africa. Now, I've brought out my my African mammal book. So there are a number of Genet species in Africa. Let me just show you. Here we go. So remember I said they part of the Viveridae family. This is just a civet, which is also part of the Viveridae family. Beautiful animals, and I've been very fortunate to see a few of these in the wild. And an area north of here in the Timbavati, we actually tend to see quite a lot of them. I've seen one of these once on Safari Live. Very quick view of a civet. But that's a civet. Okay, so that's also part of the same family as Genet. And then here we go. Here are the Genets. I'm trying to see if they say anything here, but there's a. I can't believe there's a Cape Genet, small spotted Genet at the bottom. Let me just turn the page here quickly. Number of different Genet species. So, brief overview of species with limited range. So, northeastern Africa, the Ethiopian Genet. They all look quite similar. But just to show the range, Ethiopian Genet, in Western Africa, the Borland's Genet, the Crested Genet, Johnston's Genet, Pardine Genet. Never seen any of these. And then let me just see if they've got the normal ones that we see regularly. It shows you how many different Genet species are. King Genet, Hausa Genet, in the Congo Basin, aquatic Genet, giant Genet, Cervaline Genet. There's a lot of genets around here. Anyway, so they're not that rare. You do get them. They're just nocturnal and difficult to see. It sounds like Tristan has managed to find something rather large on foot. Let's go and have a look.
We have indeed. So we were walking along Central and we managed to come across a nice small group of ellies that are busy having breakfast across the way from us. So we've positioned ourselves behind a nice big thicket and we can see them through on the other side. So they're busy feeding. You can see they've stopped feeding now because they maybe can hear me talking. You'll find every now and then they just stop and they listen a little bit and try and check out what's going on. But the thing is with herds of elephants is you've obviously got to be a bit careful. Big bull elephants, they know they're very large and often are a little bit more kind of brazen in the way they'll walk around, whereas herds, the females tend to get a little bit more kind of tense about their babies and they tend to be a little bit more protective, and so you've got to be a lot more careful when approaching herds of elephants as opposed to the males. Now, this grouping is probably going to be feeding along this lush vegetation that's growing on the banks of this drainage line that feeds into the Mulawati, and you'll find they're probably going to slowly make their way down towards sort of Gowrie Dam area, maybe for a drink a little bit later. And the thing is that it's going to take a while for them to get there because the weather conditions are absolutely perfect for elephants this morning. The wind has dropped, which means elephants will be out, and you've got a situation where you've got nice lush vegetation after the rains that have fallen, and nice cool weather with the clouds that are overhead means perfect conditions for a ellie to go about its business and to go and try and find the food that it needs, and also to meander around for a lot longer periods without having to seek shelter. So this is a great place for them to be. It looks like a rather small herd at the moment. It looks as though we can only see 3 of them, which is par for the course in the last few weeks. We've had a lot of situations where we've had elephants in small groupings. I'm pretty sure the amount of bulls around are splitting these herds a little bit and making a situation where the herds are kind of getting much smaller and fractured while the bulls are around. And once the bulls leave, we're going to have a situation where these ellies will come back together and the bigger herds will start to be seen again. But it is the best thing to watch ellies on foot. It's such a surreal experience because you sit here and you can hear them feeding and you can hear them flapping their ears, and that's how you get alerted to them. So you walk along and you hear that, and then you stop and you can kind of get into a position, and there's this sort of danger element mixed in with the fact that it's just amazing that you don't have anything around you and you can hear every little sound. It is a very special thing to be on foot with these gentle giants, and hopefully what I'm hoping is that they're going to start moving in a direction that we can maybe get a slightly closer, better view. So Alarma, we are probably, I would say, maybe 60 meters from where the ellies are at the moment. We're over, there's a little drainage section that's between us and them, and so it makes life easier for us to be standing a little bit more out in the open. Ideally, we'd want to be somewhere where there's a bit more structure, so things like a termite mound are really good to get a bit of elevation, which is a bit more intimidating to ellies. But what we've got, as you can see, we've got this massive fallen over buffalo thorn. So theoretically, if the ellies came over onto the side, we'd be able to just get in behind this and sit very still, and hopefully the ellies would move past. But we're okay because we've got such a big distance between us. And some of our closest elephant encounters are 10 meters, 5 meters, 10 meters, which is really very, very close, and probably not something that we want to get into too often. But this situation is completely safe. Those ellies don't even know we're here. They're stopping and listening every now and then, but they actually have no idea. The wind is so little this morning, there's hardly any wind, and the wind that is coming from them to us, and so they actually have no idea that we're busy viewing them. And this is the best way to view any wild animal on foot, and what we train to try and do is to try and get into a sighting, view an animal, don't basically give it any idea that you're even there, view it without changing its behavior, and then extract out and leave them to their business. So their perfect kind of walk is when you can get into a situation like this where you can really see them and watch them, but you don't actually disturb the ellies in any way whatsoever, and you don't make a situation where the ellies feel stressed and they then have to react to your presence. So that's what we try and aim to do, is trying to get into positions where we can see them really nicely, but we also don't affect their behavior at all. Now, so, Joe, you're wondering how they eat the thorns without hurting their mouth. Well, they've got massive, big crusher-like teeth, so each tooth is about that size, and there's one on each side, on top and bottom. And then they've got this incredibly hard palate with this rubbery kind of tongue. And so what happens is the smaller thorns, they go in and those teeth basically just crush the thorns down and reduce it into a pulp very, very quickly. On the larger thorns, so thorns like acacia thorns, those big white ones that we get, you'll sometimes find they'll wrap their trunk around and they pull with their trunk and they basically flatten those thorns along the edge of the bark, and then they break that branch and they feed it in the opposite way. So effectively, if you can imagine the thorns up like this, if they had to feed it in, they're going to get poked all over the place. But if they squash everything down in that direction and they feed it in like this, the thorns aren't nearly as much of a problem. And as they go in, those teeth are crushing it down and they become splintered little kind of bits of white rather than actual big sharp thorns. So a very clever way that they do it. The other trees that they really kind of have to feed a little bit more tentatively on is the things that have got very big spines. So anything like a sickle bush, which doesn't have a thorn, it has a hard wooded spine, and that becomes a lot harder, and you'll find they're a little bit more tentative about the way that they feed, and they'll kind of roll the branch around and just take the little leaflets off and then drop that branch there. They don't really sort of feed on those spines too much. Now, they are moving a little bit to my sort of northern side, so I want to try and see, there's a termite mound that's not too far away from where we are, which I think we're going to try and get to that termite mound. Hopefully it's going to give us a better view. So let's try and see if we can edge that way, Ferg, and see what we can get. I think we might have an opportunity where we can maybe sneak towards that mound. There's a big open clearing here, so we've got to be a bit careful of going too far without being seen. So let's have a look if we can just check behind this area. The termite mound's a little further than I would like and is basically a little north of us, so I don't really want to head too far in that direction, but let's just watch where we walk. We've still got a nice bit of cover on our side, which is good. So if we use this cover to walk along, we can still stay nice and hidden. So we use the bushes and the thickets just to get into a really good place. So I want to walk nice and slowly, and let's see, maybe behind here. Okay, so we can get a little bit of a view of their back still moving away from us, but it's actually going to be really nice where we are now, because there's going to be an opening that's going to come out, and the way that they're moving looks like they're going to move into a nice clearing, and we'll get a beautiful view of them in that clearing. So if we just position ourselves correctly now, in the next sort of 2-3 minutes before they get there, we should be able to see something really nice as they kind of come out through the opening. Now, the problem is we're going to have to cross a little open patch, and so what we need to do is try and kind of keep ourselves a little bit low to the ground and try and get across and through to the next thicket quite fast. Now, while I try and do that and try and get ourselves into a better position, I'm going to send you back across to Ali, who is still bumbling about, and we'll see you all shortly.
We are bumbling about, and I feel like we're doing almost like a shark patrol. So we've gone along the western boundary just to see if there were any tracks for any creatures coming into our side. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like that is the case. So what I think we're going to do is go onto the eastern side and perhaps give it another attempt at that report of a leopard on a tree with the kill. We know that yesterday we were unsuccessful in finding it. Perhaps the directions were not right, because it gets a little bit tricky when it's a report over a report. But who knows, maybe we'll get lucky and we'll be able to find something there. So I remember yesterday, Ferg and I were driving not too far from that area, and there were squirrel alarm calls, so there's a possibility that there was a leopard in there. Who knows, maybe somebody like Tamba is in there. It would be nice to see him again, and I know he's been spending some time in between Buffelshoek and Torchwood. So maybe that'll be it. Now, in terms of the lions, seems like they have gone far north from where we are, and they are further into Buffelshoek, but it's still lovely to know that they're all good all together, probably just enjoying the morning snooze, as lions do. But I'm hoping that they're going to be leaving that area soon enough, and they'll come to us. Warthogs, you said? Ah, there we go. Okay. We've got a few warthogs, but I don't know which way is the best. Can I go back or forward? Debbie, the rain has been good the last week to try and replenish certain things, but I cannot say that it's fully replenished. There are still some dams that are looking a little bit on the dry side. I think Gowrie Dam needs to be filled up a little bit more. Buffelshoek Dam, though, it's looking very good. Now, in terms of the food, you see there's a lot of greenery, much more than what there was last year, I want to say. There we go. Run, warthog, run. So overall, I think there's more food availability. Animals seem to be in slightly better condition than what they did in the summertime last year. But we definitely do need rain. We're still below the season average for rainfall in this particular area. So hopefully we'll carry on having some late rains. I do know, and they might be coming. Tristan and I were planning on going to Botswana for a holiday, and we wanted to go into the Okavango Delta, which is not too far from here. And we just received photographs yesterday of the entire area completely flooding. So I'm not too sure what we're going to do. But it does seem like the rain is coming this way. So perhaps we're just going to have a more extended rainy season this year. Could be a possibility. We've had very strange weather, but okay, here, go. So hopefully things will start, or will carry on raining or coming this way, because it's going to be perhaps a tough winter. There is more food available than what I think there was last year. And water is never really a problem in winter. There are a lot of artificial water holes around this area, but even then, it'll be a tricky thing. Right, seems like my little tiny small creatures of grey have gone running somewhere into the bushes, so let's head you back across to Tristan, who's got the big ones again.
We do indeed. So we've gotten ourselves into a really cool place. The termite mound was not really a great idea. It wasn't exactly where we wanted to be. So we've come instead, and we're using this big jackalberry, which is providing the perfect place for us to be able to see them. They're kind of just shifting across where I am now. You can see they're across the drainage line. Now there's very little cover between me and where the ellies are, but I've got a situation where I've got a massive tree, and so the ellies have no idea I'm even here. There's some ellies that are sitting on top of a termite mound that are slowly coming out, and then the big female, well, she's just shifting across now towards this open clearing, and we should get a really nice view of her coming down fairly shortly. Now look how cool this is. So I'm speaking in very low tone and to try not to alert them to our presence. With her kind of walking quite close, there is a situation where I don't really want to disturb them in any way. So we've gotten as close as we will ever be able to get with this particular herd, given the parameters that we're working within. You know, you've got to try and check where you can go, and this is as close as we can safely get to these ellies. Now, in terms of the number of ellies that we have here, there seems to be about 5 or 6 of them that are all spread out, and I'm sure there might be actually more. Now, you're saying you're sure Ferg is watching his back? Well, luckily for Ferg, he doesn't have to worry too much, because we have the expert eyes of Herbert Causa. So Herbie's also here with us, and he's obviously paying very close attention to what the ellies are doing. Both behind us he's checking, as well as he's looking sort of where I am, just to make sure that I'm not getting myself into any trouble. Now, luckily, the nice thing is with working with somebody like Herbie is that you develop a trust between the two of you, and so Herbie knows that we can handle ourselves in terms of being able to position ourselves, and he trusts that we can put ourselves in a safe place, and then he just patrols the behind us and watches out to make sure that I don't have any issues coming from the back. And it's always that case. It's not what you can see, it's what you can't see that is dangerous. And so me being able to watch the herd means that he can protect us from the back. So it's all good. So Ferg doesn't have to worry too much. He's got a nice bit of protection from Herbie behind him. But this is just so cool. It's one of my favorite things to do out in the bush, especially if I'm on walk, is to try find an elephant herd and to sit with them for extended periods of time, particularly if you can get into a situation like this where you can spend time with them and that they're out in the open. I didn't think we were going to get a really nice view of these ellies because of the way that they were walking, but we've really got into a situation where they've come out far better than I would have thought they were going to be. Now, Shadow, you're asking how loud is an elephant's trumpet? Well, when it's at this distance, incredibly loud. I'm not sure what decibel rating it goes to, but they are very, very loud. It certainly can leave a bit of a ringing sound in your ears if it's close enough. I've been on a vehicle a couple of times where they've trumpeted within 3-4 meters, and that loud, it's so loud that, like I say, it's almost like when a bang goes off and you get that ringing sound. The trumpet of an elephant kind of resonates in your ear a little bit, exactly like that. So it is an incredibly loud sound. What I'm hoping for is that these ellies will start talking to one another, and we'll get a situation where they'll start grumbling, because when you're on foot, it almost kind of comes through the ground and you can feel the vibrations in your legs and in your chest. It's the most amazing thing to feel, especially, like I say, when there's a whole herd together and they talk to each other like that and there's lots of grumbling. It is the coolest thing in the whole world. So hopefully that's what's going to be happening. I can see a lot more ellies actually are further up and away from where we are. And so I wonder how big this herd actually is. It might be a lot larger than we know, and we've just caught the tail end of it moving sort of northwards away from us. But I think what we'll do is we'll sit here and just enjoy these guys for a while and enjoy their kind of company in this open clearing. And from there, we're going to probably try and leave them alone, because it gets very thick going northwards, and it's not going to be ideal to push them any further than what we have already. So it really is very, very cool. And like I say, I thoroughly enjoy watching them. Now, what you can see behind me is a female with the young ones, and the young ones are on top of a termite mound at the moment. Now, the termite mound is important for these ellies because it's a place where they are able to, feed and get really nutrient-rich grass. And so you'll find ellies on termite mounds quite regularly, trying to use that grass as nutrition. Good. Well, we'll sit here a while longer and just see how these ellies, if they end up staying on that mound for a while. And while we do that, let's send you to Ali, who's got some ellies of her own.
Well, it seems like it is the elephant morning, and if they carry on walking in the direction that they have been, they might bump into Tristan too, so he might be fully entertained by big grey things the whole morning. Not a bad way to spend your, what is it today, Tuesday morning? Now, they've been walking in an area that's very thick, as you can see, lots of thorny trees all around, but they are steadily heading into Impala Plains, which is a bit of an open area, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to stay with them for a while, see if they do come into the open, because if they do, then it's going to be very beautiful, very nice. Now, there's a little bit of a rebel youngster, and I don't know if we're going to be able to get it with the pole, because, of course, it's right behind the pole, so I apologize for that. There's a young boy that's obviously behind in typical young boy fashion. They tend to pretend that they're big and brave, and they don't go with their moms right at the second that they said that they wanted to go. So they're always lagging behind the herd. It's such a typical characteristic of them. It's always, it reminds me of my young brothers, of how they always have to push the rules and be like, yeah, I'm coming, I'm just now. Now, he seems to be preferring to eat very spiky things today. First Lady, it is believed that elephants have brains that are similar to humans, as in, some of the things that they measure is, for example, self-recognition in the mirror, and elephants do recognize themselves in the mirror. They have, it seems, higher problem-solving abilities than some of the other creatures that are out in the bush. So they're very often regarded as very similar to humans. Now, there's also a whole emotional component to what seems to dictate part of their behavior. And I think that's probably why we have some sort of bonding with elephants, or why they attract so many people, just because we can almost recognize a lot of our emotions in the elephants themselves. Interestingly enough, part of the reason why, or it was discovered not too long ago, I think it was a study done by the Frankfurt Zoological Society, that their gestation period is that long, not only because obviously it's a very big animal that is being born and the fetus has to develop properly before they can survive outside of their mother's womb, but because they need that much extra time for their brain to be able to develop to a level where they're going to be able to be born and understand the social relationships and the social structure of the family that they're being born into, which I found incredibly interesting, because I know that had been puzzling researchers for years. So it's more to brain development than anything else. Right. They have gone behind us, and they seem to be changing direction now, so they're not heading into the open area anymore, but they've carried on walking into the thickets. Perhaps they're a little bit cold. Sometimes elephants do get cold, especially in mornings like today. So very clever, all of the creatures, instead of going out into open areas where they're going to have to fight the wind, they just prefer to stay tucked in thick vegetation, which is pretty much what Senza and I have been doing for the morning. We figured if we are cold, the rest of the universe is probably cold. So our best chance is to go through certain roads that are well protected to be able to find some creatures. And it worked out for the elephants. I think at least some of them are doing the same thing as what we are and suffering a little bit with the cold. But they've got into a tricky spot, and I don't really want to disturb them going off-road for them. Also, I don't think the views are going to be that much better than what we had here. So I think we're going to leave this particular spot and carry on going, see if maybe we find anything else along this road. Bye-bye, elephants. Who knows, maybe we'll bump into them later on. Maybe Tristan will, as they're slowly but surely heading towards quarantine area. So who knows, maybe they're going to a preferred water for a drink. Could be. Elephants are creatures of habit too. Alright, seems like Tristan is still has views or visuals of this beautiful elephant, so let's head back to him.
Well, we're still sitting with our elephants. They are still right behind me at the moment, and they are still taking it very easy. This is the most epic way to spend a morning. I love spending time like this with the Ellies, and the fact that this herd is as relaxed as it is really very, very, very cool. So it is a epic way, like I say, to start a day. It also seems as though a lot of the other Ellies are maybe going to start coming out, and we might get a view of more than just the two that we've got at the moment, which is super, super cool. Now, if those of you that have just kind of logged on and joined us, remember that this is interactive, so you can ask as many questions as you can in the comment section below. And this is the most epic thing, because we're on foot with these elephants. So what we're doing is we are on a bushwalk at the moment, and the idea behind the bushwalk is often to look for smaller things, but we do come across these big animals from time to time, and elephants are one of the most amazing animals of all of them. And when you're out here on foot, they're probably one of the most dangerous animals that we need to be careful of. And so walking towards them is not only kind of amazing in its own right, but it has this element of kind of risk to it that you've got to be careful about what you do. And so what we've done is we've come along and we found ourselves a massive big tree that is above me at the moment. This is a big jackalberry tree, and it provides the perfect cover for where I am right now. I can sit behind this tree, and those elephants have absolutely no idea that I'm standing here talking to all of you, which is exactly the way we want it. So when we're on foot and we're approaching animals like this, we want to try and get into a situation where we get in, we view them, and we can get out without having to worry at all, which is very, very cool. So, Megan, no, these elephants have no idea that I'm here. What happened is we came from the opposite direction. We heard them before we saw them, and we could hear the branches being broken. And so what we tried to do is we tried to position ourselves where we could get a view by using all of the natural bush that we've got around here to hide. Once we could see them, we then worked out which way they were going, and we then pulled our way around to a place where we knew we could get a nice view of them, but be at a safe place. And so this tree was the perfect area for that, and the Ellies are slowly but surely now coming out into this little open flood bank that we've got here, or flood plain, should I say. And so we can see them perfectly, but they have absolutely no idea I'm here. It's also why I'm talking very, very softly, is because I don't want to disturb them with a loud, big, booming voice. If I had to speak very loud, you'll find that these Ellies will probably get a fright, and either they're going to be very aggressive in the way of defending their calves, or they're going to run away. Now, neither of those responses is what we want. The idea behind a successful encounter with an animal out here on a walk is to try and get into the sighting, view the animal, and get out without the animal even knowing you ever were there. And so far it's working in our favor. The wind is absolutely perfect as well. There's a breeze that's blowing from the elephants to us, so they can't smell us, they can't see us, and they can't hear us, because we're trying to stay as quiet as possible. And that means that they are just feeding happily as though we weren't even here. And it's amazing to see. There's a whole bunch more that are starting to come out. I can see some of the young bulls that are play fighting in the background as well, which will hopefully come out in the next little bit as well. Now, Steve, these are African elephants. We're right down in the southern tip of the African continent in South Africa, and these are all big African elephants. Now, the way that you can tell the difference, Steve, between them and the Asian counterparts is if you have a look at the ears of these elephants. They have these big ears that come down and almost end in a point. Now, those ears are quite rounded at the top, and it almost resembles a little bit the shape of Africa, whereas the Asians will have a much smaller ear with kind of more points on it, and it almost looks more like the map of India. And so that's kind of a good way to tell. Also, these animals much larger than the Asian elephants, and they don't have the two bulbs on the front of the head, so you don't get those kind of bulbous growths that the Asian elephants have. These guys tend to have a much smoother forehead than the Asian counterparts. I also find These guys have a different trunk structure, but from here, you're not going to be able to see the difference there. These guys have 2 fingers, whereas the Asian have 1. Now, Michelle, a lot of these elephants are young elephants. I can't see exactly which ones you're looking at the moment, but there's one big adult female on my right-hand side, or the furthest right of the herd, and then going towards the left, there's a whole bunch of young males and a young little calf that is also there. So there's a little calf that's coming down the bank. Mom is off to the left as well. There's another big female to the left, but most of those are little sub-adults, males and juvenile individuals that are basically playing around. And you'll find that this is what happens from time to time, is that you get a situation where the sub-adults and the calves will be right in the middle of the herd, and then the fringes will be these females that will just be making sure that if things like lions or hyenas came in, that they'd be able to protect those calves. So it is basically young ones in the middle, big adult female on the right, and everybody's just kind of slowly feeding their way along. It's absolutely incredible to be a part of this, and I can hear them feeding. I can hear them, even their ears flapping, which is pretty insane. So I know it won't be very easy for you guys to hear that, but here on foot, we can hear it. It's absolutely incredible. And like I say, being on foot with these guys is a very, very special thing. Now, I wonder which way they're going to go, because they seem as though they've kind of been drifting up and down this bank. I thought that they might go into the thicket, but they've actually come out a little bit and they might be coming across more towards our side, in which case we'll probably have to rethink where we're standing. But Diane, you're asking if elephants can be very aggressive in must. So yes, Diane, they can be. What happens with that is that it's not all elephants. It's only male elephants that go into must, and must is basically a heightened level of their testosterone. So they get into a situation where their testosterone levels dramatically increase, and it's when they're going to actively start searching out females. So they're going to go look for females in order to mate with, and that must then starts. And what that means is that because they're hyped up on testosterone and they're looking for females and they're trying to challenge for mating rights, they themselves get quite worked up, and so they become a lot more unpredictable. Not aggressive, but unpredictable. And what that means is that things that generally they would allow and they wouldn't be sort of any phased about it at all, they then get a little bit upset about, or they react to, because they're trying to impose themselves as the big dominant individual. And because of all this testosterone, it causes them just to be a little bit more kind of confrontational about what they do rather than passive. And so that's why a musk bull elephant is a very, very different animal to what we're dealing with here. If you have big elephants in must, you need to be a little bit more careful about the way that you do things and the way that you approach them. But the nice thing about a musk bull elephant is you normally can smell him long before you ever see him, because of that putrid urine that comes out. It has a strong chemical scent to it, and it makes it much easier to actually pick them up than these herds. But this is just so cool. The rest of the herd seems as though they might be shifting down towards where I am at the moment. So hopefully we can get them all coming out into a nice open clearing. You can see there's some young boys that are busy playing around in the background. They're having a little pushing match, which is very common for our young elephants, particularly the boys. They like to get into these situations where they push each other around, and the reason that they do it is just to establish themselves and to get themselves ready for when they become adult males. We're talking about musk bulls. When these guys are young like this, and them pushing themselves is almost like training for when they're going to be a musk bull, and they're going to have to compete for females. They're going to have a situation where they can push each other around, strengthen those neck muscles, get a bit of a technique going as to how to lock the tusks together and push, and to test each other's strength. So it is something that we see a lot from young males. They unfortunately have just gone behind a little thicket, but I'm sure they'll come around a little bit shortly. So Jenny, yes, you're correct. You can tell if we're looking at a male or a female just by the shape of the head. A female elephant, like the one on the far right here, you'll notice that her forehead almost ends very, very kind of squared off. So you'll have a situation where there's a very kind of angular end to that forehead, whereas the males tend to have a very rounded forehead. So it's almost like a very gentle slope that just goes from the top of the head down towards the trunk, whereas the females have those very sharp, pointy heads that give them their look. And so very easy to tell. The other thing that you can use to be able to tell females and males apart is the tusks. The tusk shape is very different on a male and a female. Males get these big, bulky, thick tusks, whereas the females tend to have much narrower, straighter tusks than what the boys do. And the other thing that you can use is actually the distance between the front and back legs. Now, that's quite tough if you don't see elephants a lot, but the distance between the front and back legs is much longer on a female, and the reason for that is because she has to house this massive calf that weighs close to 300 pounds at birth, and so she has to have a slightly bit more extra, and so her spinal cord is actually, or spinal column, is actually a little bit more extended than what that of the male is. So the male kind of looks a lot more compact and much taller, whereas the female tends to be a lot more elongated and shorter, which is very cool. Right. Now, our ellies are slowly moving off. They're kind of pushing northwards, some of them. Some of them are still kind of feeding behind the thickets, but we're losing a bit of a view of them. We're going to probably carry on, try and see what else we can find. But it's been an absolute pleasure having you with us. Myself and Ferg have really enjoyed bringing this to all of you, and we hope that you will join us for the remainder of our safari this morning on Safari Live. You can just Google that and find it, and you can carry on watching if you liked what you saw. Good. Well, like I say, we'll carry on, but hopefully we'll see you all soon. Right, guys, so the ellies are now moving in an area where they're coming back towards where we are. So we're going to try and actually get ourselves out of where we are now before we get caught out. So while we do that, let's send you back across to Byron, who's got a bird that I think might be fishing.
Very clever, and great sighting that Tristan had with those ellies on foot. I'm very jealous. Now we are at Chitwa Dam, and there is a bird fishing. Well done, Tristan. I like that one. A green-backed heron. Now let's see. It hasn't been lucky, or it hasn't caught anything yet. But maybe while you are watching with us, watch how it launches in to the water. Very patient, and that neck shoots out very, very quickly. Let's have a look. Oh, okay. It decided it's had enough, and it flew off. Oh no. That's not very nice. And then there it goes. Well done, Viam. Hello. Yeah, maybe it didn't want to be on camera. Loads of hippo here at the moment, and I know all used to seeing this hippo, but wonderful to see them at Chitwa Dam. There was a youngster playing around there. Let's see, they're quite active this morning. I'm just listening to the radio while I'm here. I can hear I'm just listening to what they have to say. There's a herd of elephant that just arrived through the back. I wonder how long they've been there for, because I didn't see them earlier. True. It's nice to see a herd of elephant. I don't know if they drank, or where they moved from. Did you see them drinking, Viam? No, I didn't see them drinking at all. Listen to the hippo grunts. Oh, there's that young hippo again, Viam, just at the base of the tree. There we go. Moving around. It's not quite a baby, but it is a young one. It's almost like it's being a bit playful, pushing up against what I assume is the mother. Young hippo are really cute though, aren't they? Public, I don't think the hippos pulled down that tree. I think possibly what happened with all the rain and the increase in water, and maybe some of the movement of the hippos on what I assume is a little island over there, and that was what was keeping that tree up. I think maybe the soil just softened a lot and the tree fell over. I don't think it was intentional by the hippo. Oh, look at a little yawn from that youngster. Yeah, maybe with them leaning against it, it could have, accidentally fallen over slightly, but they wouldn't push it down for any specific reason. Wonderful. Very peaceful sitting at these dams in the mornings. You can hear all these hippo calling. We were very fortunate. Yesterday morning we got here, found a huge herd of impalas, sat with them for about a minute. Next thing, they gave an alarm call and we found a male leopard. It was Tingana who popped out over here near the dam. We had a lovely, lovely view of him. Oh, what's this egret flying towards us? View. Look at that beautiful egret. It's a great egret. Well done, Viem. Just flew over us. Wonderful, wonderful, beautiful, beautiful bird. Was it Humble Henry or... Sorry, Faith, Humble Henry, I think was the name. Oh, sorry, Humble Humby. Oh, watch, there's a little bit of, sorry, just a quick little interaction between his hippo. Humble Humby, you asked if there's ever interaction between the hippo and the crocodiles. Well, yes, at times there are, and especially when the water dries up and these animals are forced to get even closer together. Just have a look. Oh, there we go. That's interesting behavior. Not sure what that would have... Wow, this hippo can thrash in the water. I wonder if that's not a female just potentially trying to protect the youngster from a male. The male's just getting a bit too close. So with the crocodile and hippo, they do interact from time to time, but generally they kind of keep their distance from one another. I think there's a mutual respect. They both live in the water holes, and look, if anything, I think a hippo would chase a crocodile away. Crocodiles are very powerful, however, a hippo just wins the size and weight battle, I think. So generally, the crocodiles keep out of the way of the hippo. Robin, interesting question. Do hippos have flat tongues? I don't think it's completely flat, Robin. No, it's their tongues are... I mean, how can you describe it? They're not flat, but I don't know. I'll try to see if I can find a picture for you quickly in one of these books of the hippopotami tongue. It's nice to see so much activity from them, though. A little bit more active this morning, I think, also maybe because it's cooler. Robin, let me show you quickly. Raffaele, you say you wish you could do some snorkeling or scuba diving here. That would not be a very good idea. I would not recommend that. You definitely find yourself in some serious trouble. Now, have a look here, Robin. Just looking at the tongue of the hippos here. I think, like most tongues, the muscle within the tongue, you are able to move the tongue a little bit. I think with a yawn like that, You can see the tongue just over there. It looks a little flat-ish, but I do think it sometimes is... How do you describe it? Normal tongue shape? I don't know. It's where it can get a bit fatter, not as flat, but rather swollen, fat. I don't know. How do you describe a tongue? I'm stumped. I've got nothing. We're going to have to ask Tristan or Ali. Maybe they can describe a tongue properly. That's what it looks like. Feels like a bit of a lazy morning this morning. Don't know why. It's very relaxing sitting here. Some more calls. And Dan, the hippos, if the water dries up completely, the hippos will have to go and look for water elsewhere. What they may do is they may move down towards the rivers. Maybe the river holds water for a lot longer in the dry season. I mean, I've never seen this dam dry. I think this dam always has water in it. But if it did dry up, they'd have to go and search for water elsewhere, which they do. Hippos can cover huge distances. Even this hippo, I would definitely say that some of the hippo from here move around and go from one dam to another, and sometimes even all the way down to the river. Probably the Sand River, which is the closest river to where we are now, south of us. Okay, I think we're going to sit here a little bit longer just to see if something doesn't pop out or potentially come down to drink. Let's go across to Ellie. I'm not sure what her plan is or where she is at the moment. Let's go and find out.
Well, we have decided to, funny enough, we're on our way to a different set of hippos than what Byron has. We are on our way to Buffelshoek Dam. We've been checking this area for yesterday about that leopard on a kill on a tree. However, we haven't been able to come across anything. No leopard, no duiker on top of it.
Oh dear, it sounds like Ali was having some technical issues there quickly. Not to worry, you can stay with us. You know what, I don't think these hippo are going to do much more. VM, you'd like to move on, shall we? I think, why don't you go have a look around and just see if we can't find any sign of other animals in the area. I wouldn't mind spending some time with a herd of elephants. I know Tristan did on foot, but I'm feeling a bit jealous. I actually had a wonderful elephant encounter yesterday. So, hold on, I'm just going through this dip quickly. So yesterday we had issues with one of the wires in the vehicle, and we had to ask Jared very nicely to fix it for us, which he did. And was sitting at camp, and an elephant came, 2 elephant bulls. Now, because there's so many marulas around, especially near camp, these elephants came and were feeding on it, and we've got, it's just like an elephant deterrent. It's little strands of wire that go around the camp, but they're about 1.5 meters to 2 meters off the ground. And where the vehicle goes in, there's just a spring that goes across it. We have to hook, and that was down, and these elephants are right outside, and we're worried that they might come into camp. So I walked over to go and have a look what they were up to, and actually sat down and watched the one for a while, and got really close to him, and he was very relaxed. He was feeding. He knew I was there, not upset at all. and then someone said I should close that spring because they don't want him to come in. So I was like, oh no, well this is going to be a bit different because I now have to walk closer to him, which he might not enjoy. And it must have been about 8 meters from him, maybe, when he decided that he wasn't too happy with me being that close. He did lift his ears and opened his ears, lifted his head, and he took a little run at me just to say don't come any closer, but he wasn't really aggressive. But I didn't have any cover then, so it was a standoff between myself and the elephant. But again, he only did that because I chose to walk closer towards him. He was very comfortable when I was viewing him earlier, and I must have been about 30 meters from him, just sitting on the ground. But then going closer, going into his space, he wasn't happy. But again, I wouldn't do that with guests. It was just that scenario. Make sure he didn't come in because there's a lot of staff around camp, and some of the staff are not very experienced with having elephant around. So you do have to be careful. So just put that little spring up so that he didn't come right in. Oh, some guinea fowl. Now, let's just have a quick look at the beautiful guinea fowl because they are wonderful to see as they disappear. All right, well, it sounds like Ali may have sorted out her technical issues. Let's go back to her quickly.
We have, and we've arrived to Buffelshoek Dam, but the house says it's empty today. So after always having one hippo, then we proceeded to have 3 hippo, and now no hippo in sight. Huh. I think they probably out feeding something. It is very cool weather, so perhaps they've just been gallivanting and exploring the bush out and about. So although walking conditions in this weather tend to be great, it's also, there is a major possibility of bumping into other creatures that you might not perhaps bump into during a very hot day, like the hippos. Now, we were a little bit puzzled to first see 3 in here, but I wonder if they've now decided that this is not good enough, or if they're out eating somewhere. Perhaps they're going to be resting outside of the water today, unless it gets a little bit too hot, in which case they're probably going to be forced to come back to some sort of water source where they can keep nice and moist, or nice and wet. But for now, seems like there's nobody home. Unique hippos are slightly smaller than white rhino. It's just, normally it's thought that they're smaller by just half a ton, so it's not like they are that much smaller than rhinos, but they're not included in the Big Five because the Big Five is an old hunting term that referred to the 5 animals that were the most dangerous to approach on foot for hunting purposes. So as you can imagine, approaching a hippo in the water, although hippos have been hunted as well, it just didn't form part of the thrill of the hunt and going into the bush and looking for the creatures, I would imagine. So that's part of the reason why the hunters didn't include them in the Big Five category. Now, whenever you come to South Africa, obviously there's a lot more, or just the bush in general, a lot more to see than just the Big Five, and the hippos and giraffes and zebras are a very good example of it. Now, going back to the giraffe, I think it was Lady Jane, if I'm not mistaken, that sent through the answer of the question that we had earlier this morning as to how many sets of teeth do giraffe have. And it seems like it's only 1. So I was off by 1. But definitely they don't have so many replacements as the elephants do throughout their lifetime. Probably because they feed on leaves most of the time, so it's a lot softer than what elephants have to go through. Elephants will chew fruits with very hard nuts inside. They will eat seed pods. They will eat the bark of the tree and all sort of things that perhaps require some more wearing down of their teeth than perhaps what a giraffe would. Now, I'm surprised that there's very little happening here at Buffelshoek Dam, so I think we're actually going to leave and then just carry on our search, see if maybe we can find something else down the cut line, perhaps any signs of life for Thandi, because she's been out and about, and I'm really hoping that she's going to be somewhere around here. But let's carry on exploring and maybe we'll be able to find out. Robin, there is a fence on the western boundary because that just demarcates the end of the protected area, so it's to prevent the animals from walking into the human settlements and the local communities and so forth. However, there are absolutely no fences in the Sabi Sand to the eastern side, which is the Kruger National Park. So that's why we are considered part of the greater Kruger National Park, because the animals that walk in here can very easily just walk out and head back into Kruger. So the Sabi Sand, and then by addition there's another few reserves just further north from us, the Timbavati, Glacieri, and now Thorny Bush. They're all as well open into the Kruger National Park. So there are only fences that prevent the animals from going outside of the natural area, but within the natural area there are no fences and they can move pretty much where they want, which is a very cool thing because we prefer more of natural environments, an open system, as we like to call it, where animals can freely move from one place to the other. Right, seems like Tristan has found some tracks, so fingers crossed. Let's find out if it belongs to a spotted cat.
No, it's not a spotted cat, but it is one of the most insanely cool creatures that we get in this part of the world. So what we've got is a proverbial highway of ants that is going up and down. And these are all what we call kind of red ants. That's not their real name, but they're known as red ants a lot of the time. And so these guys are very common in this area. And you can see just how much they've been moving up and down, that they've worn this massive path that's deep cut into the road. So they've moved soil out of the way as they've kind of gone up and down, and eventually kind of pushing the whole surface and compacting it. It's absolutely amazing, because a track like this is something that if you just widened it would be what an elephant would leave behind. Now the interesting thing about this is that all of the ones that are going from my left to right, so sort of right to left of your picture, are all carrying little eggs with them. So they've got eggs, which means these ants are moving their eggs from one place to another. Now why would ants move eggs from one place to another? There is a very simple reason, and I think it's because they are prepping for rain to be coming. So often when you find ants moving like this on a road, carrying eggs, it's an indication that big rain is about to happen. And so what they're doing is they're moving it from a low-lying area, and they're going to take it across the road and up to the other side. Now on the other side of me is a big termite mound. And so what they might be doing is going up towards the termite mound, and they're going to use the termite mound and the height of the mound to be able to get out of the way of water that's falling. That's normally what happens with these guys when they carry larvae. There could be obviously other reasons. There might have been an attack on the nest, but very seldom do they move eggs in this sort of quantity and this quickly for any other reason that when weather conditions are coming and rain might be on its way. So it's going to be interesting to see, do we get rain in the next few days, heavy rain, or is it just a situation that maybe there's been a slow seep of water from the last rains up through the ground that's causing them to move. But you can see one or two of them carrying these little white eggs that they've got. It's absolutely amazing watching the organization of these ants and seeing them, how they go back and forth. It really is astounding, and the fact that these guys have created such a deep groove into the road astounds me. It's amazing. Good. Well, we're going to leave our ants to Pete and see if they can move all of their little ones without us disturbing them. While we do that, let's send you back across to Ali, that's got something that is also intelligent, but much, much, much larger than these guys.
Well, much larger indeed. Much, much, much larger, and Tristan knows his animals very well. But this young boy was giving us a little bit of trouble, coming and flapping his ear and just doing all those typical funny things that young bulls do just to try and show that they're big. Now, it's gone off a little bit too far into the bushes. So I'm just going to try and going forward, see if maybe that'll give us another look or another view of them. But I also just want to come here and listen, as it almost sounds like there is a squirrel alarm calling. There is. Okay. I think, beautiful elephants, we might just abandon you guys for a little while. I want to go and investigate what that squirrel is alarming at, just in case there's something there. While we go in Bundubash, let's head over to Byron and see what feather friend he's spending time with.
Oh no, it's a long-tailed paradise wider. Look at that beautiful tail. I'm hoping it lands for us. Come on, come back here. Please. Well done, Viam. That is so cool. I haven't seen one of these little birds around here for ages. I'm hoping it lands again. I think it's coming down to land. Now, look at that undulating flight pattern. There it sits. Look at that. Isn't that magnificent? Long-tailed paradise wider. I haven't seen one of these on Safari Live before. I've seen it in other parts. But, oh, there it goes. It seems to be looping around. Wait, maybe it comes closer. Yes. And there it is right here. It's well done, VM. VM's done an amazing... Oh, hold on. Where is it going? It flew off that way. Maybe we get another view of it. Wasn't that spectacular? To see it undulating through the air with that beautiful long tail, very thick tail. I'll show you another picture of it shortly. I just want to see if we can't get another view. Hold on. No, that's not it. Where did he go? I think it's in that torchwood there, Viv. Let's just have a look. Oh, Laura Moore, you say, oh, there it is. There we go. Beautiful. You say it looks like a dragon. And that's a lovely view of it. Look at that. It's sitting on the... Well, that is perfect. Now you can see the coloration. We don't have the bright light behind it now, so that is perfect. Lovely view. Brazilla, yeah, definitely that long, heavy tail would make it very difficult for it to fly long distance. These birds, I don't think, are known for long distance flight. But this is the breeding male. I'll show you pictures quickly. But if you have a look here, that's a non-breeding male. See, it loses that tail completely and the coloration. And then this is the breeding male, what we just saw. With that beautiful long tail. And there you can see the comparison, the female to the male look completely different. These wide-eyes, a lot of them, the males look a lot different to the females. Look at that, that's lovely. And that's a non-breeding male. Look at that, how different he looks in the winter. There's a picture of a female. That's a female. That's a wonderful bird. I'm so glad I got to show you that. Oh, lovely. Starlight, you know what? That tail doesn't take very long to grow. It'll take about a week or two. And it comes into season when, obviously, when it's breeding time, so summer. And not breeding, when it's not breeding season. And they go back to that pale form or that pale coloration. Man, just a few weeks. It's very quick, actually. But it's amazing how they grow these long tails to attract the female, try and make themselves look as beautiful and as elegant as possible. And speaking of elegance, let's head across to Tristan. Oh dear, Tristan seems to have gone quiet on us. Hopefully they get that sorted out soon. Now there's always an abundance of bird life in this area. I don't know what it is, but there's always wonderful birds around here. We're kind of on this what we call cheetah cut line, long straight cut line, I think, because there's a bit of grassland, open area, and a bit of mixed woodland. Maybe it's a perfect habitat for a number of bird species. So we get lovely birds around here. Well, it sounds like Tristan wants to speak to us again. Let's go back to him.
Indeed I do, Byron. I would love to rather chat than be mute. As much as I enjoy the Charlie Chaplin style presenting, it's better to be able to speak. But we do have, probably as Byron mentioned, the most elegant of little creatures. It's not me that he was referring to, because we know Byron would never call me elegant. And we are referring to these beautiful flower mantis that we get in this area. Yes, Byron refers to me as an elephant more often than not. And so these flower mantis are around quite a bit at the moment. You see them a lot on the wealth areas. They kind of sit on the edges and they wait for animals to come towards the flowers. So if you have a look, you can see a little yellow flower over there. Now, there'll be all kinds of insects that will come down to feed off the nectar of that flower, and as it comes down, this mantid can be able to then grab it with those big, powerful forelimbs that are folded in, grabs it, and then it feeds off it. Now, I want to show you just how perceptive these mantis are, because if I take my finger, now watch me move my finger around. You see how it follows my finger? You see that? Incredibly good eyesight that it's able to see and follow the movement pretty much perfectly, which is absolutely amazing. So these guys rely on quite large eyes in relation to the size of their head and are very perceptive as to what goes on around them. They really do kind of see what's happening and they blend in incredibly well. You can see now, look, it's looking at all of you saying, who is this big camera that's coming towards me to say hello? And it's got the most amazing camouflage. It's got little bits of greens on it, bits of whites that help just blend it in, and they are really tough to kind of see from time to time. And so you've got to kind of keep your eye out, and particularly if they get onto a flower itself. Sassy, you say it looks so pretty, especially with the yellow flowers near it. It is a very pretty insect. Like I say, as Byron mentioned, they are probably one of the most elegant individuals we have out here. I love the way that their eyes are shaped as well. They almost look alien-like. They've got these very pointy eyes with a little black spot in the middle. I think they're absolutely cool little things. I love spending time with these little flower mantis and watching them go about their business. They're really, really cool. I'll tell you one thing, though. They are almost hyperactive in the way that they move their antenna. So the other day I was trying to photograph one of these guys, and I've photographed quite a few of the different mantis species over the last few weeks, and they've all been fairly relaxed and fairly chilled, and they sit tight and they don't really move too much. But these guys are as though they've taken speed or something, because their antennas constantly move. They almost vibrate all the time, and they are quite twitchy little characters. So every time the lens element moves or shifts and changes, they move their head, and so it makes macro quite difficult, because obviously when you take a photo of these guys, your depth of field is crazy. So I'm sure Ferg can attest to that. When they twitch all over the place, makes life a little bit more difficult, as does the wind. Very nice, Ferg. Well done. Sterling effort for holding the camera as steady as you did. Good. We're going to leave our little mantis to itself. Let it carry on hunting away over the flowers that are in this area. We're going to let it sit and enjoy the probably warmer weather and lack of wind. These poor little guys must have been blown around in the last few days, and so they'll be probably quite happy that things have stopped and slowed down, because more insects will be around, and I'm sure they're feeding quite heavily at the moment on all kinds of flies and various other things as well. So very cool to see, though. I'm thoroughly impressed that we found one of those, which is very cool. Well done, Ferg. Good visuals, I believe. Good. Now we're going to carry on. We're going to still see if we can find any sign of Tundi. Nothing so far. We're on Central Road. We're going to cut through towards Batalia and Mamba. While we do that, let's send you back across to Ali and see how our search for the morning has gone.
Well, it's not really going to many places. We haven't been able to pick up any signs of this leopard and the squirrel. Well, if it was even a leopard, or if there was anything else, because it is very, very thick in here, and it's almost impossible to get into some of the spots. So It doesn't seem like we're having much luck with them this morning. I just want to circle around here once more, just in case anything does pop out of the bushes. So at least we'll be somewhere around here. But it seems like the squirrel has decided wherever it was has moved off from where it could see it from its field of view, so it's not calling anymore. Now, as we saw yesterday, squirrels won't only alarm at leopards or any cat-like predator. They also do it with birds of prey. So it could also be that it was looking at a bird of prey, and that bird of prey flew into the branches of a tree, and perhaps that's why it's calmed down now. So I can't hear it anymore, and we haven't been able to pick up any tracks coming onto the roads either. So that's been a tricky one. Where you going? Alright, doesn't seem like there's much going on here. I just want to confirm something with Byron on the radio. Byron, confirm, are you on Buffelshoek cut line and Chitwa cut line, just on the close to Buffelshoek Dam? Okay, no, Kabi, I had a squirrel alarming recently, so I'm not sure if maybe it's for the same one. Copy. Right, seems like Byron is on the cut line, and he's picked up some what seem to be leopard tracks on the cut line. So it could be that the squirrel alarm calling and Byron's track are related. Could be that they belong to the same individual. So it's definitely worth for us doing another loop around here and just listening out intently for anything that might be here. We do know that there's a variety of males that come into this area. We've seen things around here quite often. We know Hukumuri has sort of entered into this particular area, and Tamba's also known for being or hanging around here. So some of them, it could also be an unknown one, perhaps coming from Buffelshoek or Torchwood side. It would be interesting, but I'm not sure whereabouts they are, but I'm going to carry on looking around here. Hopefully we'll be able to pick up some other sign that will pinpoint us in the right direction. But while we do that, let's head over to Byron so he can tell us all about the tracks he saw.
All right, well, some luck at the moment. We've just found some leopard tracks, male leopard tracks, heading down this road, so actually heading south. But now I can't see fresh tracks along here. I'm trying to work out which direction this leopard went. If he did continue south, or if he cut off, hopefully he went that way. We're not that far from Buffelshoek Dam. Buffelshoek Dam's in that direction. We are on Chitwa Cutline though, so I don't know. I'm just trying to see if I get any sign again here, because sometimes what leopards do is they may walk along a road, but then they'll go off road, maybe scent mark a bush or something, then loop back down and loop back onto a road again. There's a road not too far down that I think we should maybe take, because this is very close. Well, this is Torchwood right next to us. If that leopard went that way, then there's no chance of finding him. But what I'm going to do is drive down, and we're going to loop around and then see if we can find some tracks along the way. That is actually, I find it very difficult to drive, and I honestly think we miss a lot of tracks. If I was sitting there, it would be a lot easier, but to see the tracks. But I think while we're driving and scanning, I do think we miss the odd track. And especially if a leopard decides it's walking down the road and all of a sudden moves off, because then we're not sure exactly where it's gone. Let me just look here. See, this is the fun part of trying to find animals. Looking for tracks, looking for signs. See, if I drive like this, it's easier. I can have a clear view of the road, and I can see if the leopard walked here or not.